From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Sani Gray. Brazilian oil workers are set to start a 72-hour strike in a new blow to President Michel Temer. This comes as the truck drivers' strike reaches its 10th day. Unions representing oil workers are demanding the resignation of the state oil company Petrobras' chief executive, Petrobras. They're also asking Petrobras and the government to stop fuel price increases. The 10-day trucker strike has emptied roads and left major cities short of food, gasoline, and medical supplies. The truckers have lifted roadblocks in some areas to increase the flow of goods. At least 150 food trucks escorted by armed soldiers made it to Rio de Janeiro, where many supermarkets had run out of fresh products. Officials warned it would take days to restore supply lines disrupted by the strike that at its height saw over 1,000 roadblocks on key highways.
What we hear in the media is that the strike has ended, but as we're seeing, there are parts of Rio de Janeiro state where the strike still continues. And even if this strike ended today, it would take at least 7 days for sure for everything to go back to normal.
And our correspondent Ignacio Limas has more details from Sao Paulo.
Several roads and highways have been partially unblocked, although in some areas the strike continues. The city of Sao Paulo has started receiving fuel after the military escorted some trucks to fuel dispensers. Long lines of cars wait to buy the fuel that has started to arrive in the city. Lines go back as far as 5 blocks. The truck drivers' strike started 10 days ago in protest of diesel fuel price rises. President Michel Temer agreed to lower the price of fuel, although only for 60 days in an attempt to end the protest. Despite this, the state oil company Petrobras has announced that fuel prices will go up again. For this reason, oil workers started a 72-hour strike around the country. They are calling for the head of Petrobras to resign, and they're also resisting the privatization of the state company.
We thank Ignacio for that report. The U.S. actor Danny Glover is in Brazil this week to meet the parents of the murdered councillor Marielle Franco. He will also meet social movements and government officials to discuss the case.
U.S. actor and UN Ambassador Danny Glover joined a number of activities with the Popular Truth Commission to investigate the actions of the military intervention in the state of Rio de Janeiro.
For us, it's a dream that Danny Glover has come. He's trying to help prevent the violation of human rights in the state of Rio de Janeiro, which has greatly increased thanks to the military intervention.
At the Casa de Raíces of Brazil, Glover met with the parents of Marielle Franco, the councilwoman who was assassinated along with her driver Anderson Gomez this past March. The case has yet to be solved by authorities.
What happened with Marielle is not meant to stay confined to Brazil. We have supporters like this who are following up on the story in order to give us strength and support in an unclear situation.
For her parents, it's important that the memory of Marielle remains alive so that her fight continues onward.
Let other Marielles stand up, because in Rio de Janeiro and Brazil, we need people, leaders, to speak for the classes that have no voice.
Danny Glover went to the local government headquarters to present the numerous complaints that have been received. At the same time, the military commander who was responsible for the security of Rio de Janeiro after the military intervention did not join the meeting. The governor tried to justify the absence of the military representatives.
I talk with them all the time. They are with the entire crisis cabinet taking care of urgent issues, like supplies from nearby cities.
Glover also received complaints from residents of a favela in Rio and from representatives of Afro-Brazilian religions who denounced the violations suffered by the community. The actor highlighted the role of social movements in organizing for justice.
Both in the work that is being done by social movements, the work that's being done by movements like MST, I can talk about what I see the possibilities of being, despite the tragedy, despite the pain, and despite the inertia or inaction of public officials.
Glover will also visit Sao Paulo and Curitiba in the coming days. The actor and U.S. activist lives with a commitment to join the campaign that demands justice for Marielle Franco, and which is also denouncing the constant violations of human rights carried out by the state here in Brazil.
Desde Rio de Janeiro, André Vieira e Sebastián Soto.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel is in Cuba for his first official visit. Diaz-Canel visited the National Pantheon in Caracas with his wife Liz Cuenca. They also took part in a special ceremony and signed the official visitor's book. The Cuban president said his visit is a show of solidarity with Venezuela, which has been under intense international pressure. And in Cuba, the tropical storm Alberto has left 4 people dead and forced the evacuation of 40,000 others. Floodwaters swept away a bridge and damaged roads and other infrastructure, leaving many communities cut off and nearly 60,000 people without electricity. The storm has also damaged crops, especially rice, tobacco, bananas, and beans. The provinces of Santi Espíritus, Villa Clara, and Cienfuegos are the most affected, but there's also considerable damage in Ciego de Avila and Matanzas. After 3 days of heavy rain, the storm is moving north now towards the United States. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel met with his cabinet and emergency services to assess the damage. He is quoted by the Cuban newspaper Granma as saying, "As we've done before, the country will overcome this difficult situation." Social movements in the Dominican Republic have urged President Danilo Medina to recognize the outcome of the Venezuelan presidential elections. People gathered at the National Palace to give the president a letter signed by 18 organizations and over 100 people. They say Medina should respect the will of the Venezuelan people and recognize the re-election of President Nicolas Maduro.
As a political movement, and as Dominicans, we say that the Venezuelan election held on May 20 was backed by international organizations and was also endorsed by the international delegates who participate as observers.
Outgoing Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos addressed the European Parliament in Strasbourg, commenting on the presidential elections in his country. He also discussed the process of the ongoing peace process in Colombia and the country's admission into international organizations such as the OCDE and NATO.
They were, in addition, the safest, most transparent elections, with the best guarantees, with the most observers, and most importantly, with the greatest participation in our history. Even my most bitter opponents say so. Even Rodrigo Londoño, alias Timochenko, former commander of FARC and today chief of his own political party, while voting for the first time, said so. The achievement of the disarmament of FARC and its constitution as a political party, with the condition that its leaders undergo a process of transnational justice, has changed the country in a fundamental way, and whoever is my successor should know that this advance is definitive and irreversible. This afternoon in Paris, together with the OECD Secretary General and in front of President Macron, I will sign the agreement which will confirm this organization's decision to admit Colombia as its 37th member. We also are the first country in Latin America to become part of this social global category of NATO, which I will formalize tomorrow in Brussels.
The president of Ecuador, Lenin Moreno, has met international organizations to discuss the situation on the northern border with Colombia. The country's defense minister, Raúl Oswaldo Jarín, met the International Red Cross Committee. The Red Cross has said they will extend all humanitarian support to help to recover the bodies of the 2 Ecuadorian journalists and their driver killed in April by the Olivier Sinisterra armed group.
Relationship will be cordial. We are all moving in the same direction, with the same purpose, objectives, and dreams.
The family members of the murdered journalists have asked the governments of Colombia and Ecuador to do more to recover the bodies of their loved ones.
Classified information on the case, we haven't had much contact with the government. Everything ended after the government gave us the files. They haven't provided more information after that. This surprises us. I think we need to start other actions so that the government understands this case cannot close just because they gave us classified papers. And tomorrow, with them giving us our loved ones' belongings.
The LGBTI community in Ecuador is celebrating the decision by the Constitutional Court to allow a lesbian couple to register their daughter with both mothers' surnames. The decision is a milestone in a country where the LGBTI community still fights discrimination. The so-called Satya case began in 2011 when Nicola Rothon and Helen Bricknell started the process to register their daughter with both their surnames, as is done by heterosexual couples. However, despite being born in Ecuador, the child was given a foreign identity card. The court's decision has allowed the girl to have citizenship as well as her mother's surnames. The LGBTI community still demands equal marriage for same-sex couples to be recognized. We're going to take a very short break, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Mexican journalist Hector Gonzalez Antonio has been found dead on Tuesday morning in Tamaulipas, Mexico. Gonzalez worked as a correspondent for the newspaper Excelsior, and he was CEO of the news website Todo Noticias. He is the 6th journalist killed in Mexico this year. 11 others were killed in 2017. The Attorney General of Tamaulipas has opened an investigation to find those responsible for his murder. The United States President Donald Trump and his Mexican counterpart Enrique Peña Nieto have argued once more over the construction of the border wall between the two countries. During a rally in Nashville, Tennessee, Trump accused Mexico of failing to stop undocumented migrants crossing into the United States. He repeated to his supporters his campaign pledge that Mexico would pay for the wall.
They make all of this money and they do absolutely nothing to stop people from going through Mexico, from Honduras and all these other countries, the caravan, all of this stuff. They do nothing to help us, nothing. They're going to pay for the wall and they're going to enjoy it, okay? They're going to enjoy it. They do nothing for us.
President Peña Nieto tweeted a response to Trump's claims and reaffirmed that his country will not pay for the wall. Still in Mexico, a group of investigators have said that millions of dollars are being used illegally for election campaigns.
An analysis of the financing of election campaigns in Mexico, conducted by 2 independent organizations, has shown the use of money of illegal origin by political parties.
Why do we have this great deception? First, for every peso reported by the parties, we discovered there are 15 pesos used illegally.
In a press conference, the relationship between businessmen who finance campaigns and the candidates was revealed.
The candidate does not owe loyalty to ordinary citizens, but to those who finance their campaign. That is not democratic.
Analysts have been gathering electoral data since 1994. The aim is to strengthen regulations that call for transparent campaign costs.
With these findings, we could contribute to cleaner elections in which people are able to vote for whoever they want to vote.
But it's not just vote buying that threatens Mexican democracy. There are also examples of vote blocking, where people are prevented from voting.
Se gasta ya más en inhibir el voto.
More is spent on inhibiting the vote, meaning trying to block voters who have been identified as opposition supporters from arriving to the polling stations.
Every 6 years in the run-up to the election, at least $1,900 million enter Mexico that, according to the study, cannot be controlled. For the most part, the money is destined to buy votes and pay for media coverage.
Problems continue at the Colombian Ituango hydroelectric plant project, where over 1,500 workers have been evacuated because of a potential landslide. Radars detected possible landslides inside the complex, which has been malfunctioning since May 12. The flooding of the Cauca River provoked by the hydroelectric plant has forced the evacuation of 25,000 residents. Workers are now trying to prevent the dam from collapsing, which would put 130,000 people at risk.
Land, and for the protection of all the staff, there was an order for evacuation. The main priority is to maintain the decisions that have been implemented for the safety and welfare of the people.
And in Nicaragua, committees formed to end the country's ongoing violence are discussing their plans for a lasting solution.
Even though the government, the church, and other sectors have called for an end to the violence, the roadblocks, looting, and fires continue. Byron is one of thousands of citizens who believe that peace can be reached through negotiation.
I hope that this situation gets better. The dialogue will be the way to reach peace in Nicaragua, to get everything back to normal, so everyone can live in peace and harmony.
The sociologist Bismarck Sierro believes that if there is no ideological and political plan to support a social movement, attempts to achieve an agreement between the parties will not be effective.
What I hope is that this small commission can bring us dialogue and an agenda that allows us to develop in Nicaragua, an agenda that allows us to bring peace and justice. Because we need justice. Those responsible for putting us through this should be punished.
Member of Parliament Jacinto Suarez affirms that the government is committed to finding a solution, but the existence of armed groups is preventing the dialogue from moving forward.
Armed groups that want to prevent an agreement in the national dialogue are appearing. This is what we need to understand, that as the dialogue advances, there will be these kinds of problems. These are criminals who are taking advantage of the situation.
There is no date yet nor time for the resumption of the dialogue called by President Daniel Ortega, where students, businessmen, and other sectors talk, mediated by the church.
The Guatemalan Constitutional Court has granted temporary legal protection to prevent the expulsion of the Swedish ambassador Anders Kompas. Kompas was threatened with expulsion in January after he criticized corruption in the country's public services. However, the court rejected the attempt by the Guatemalan Foreign Affairs Minister Sandra Jovel to remove the diplomat. Puerto Ricans could see their holidays and pensions cut in a new round of austerity measures. The Fiscal Control Board has asked for a 10% cut in pensions and the reduction of the holiday period. The board has also proposed the withdrawal of the Christmas bonus, the reduction of sick leave, and other employee benefits. Haitian President Jovenel Moïse is on a 5-day visit to Taiwan. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen held a military reception in Taipei in his honor. President Moise arrived to the islands along with a 30-member delegation. His team will meet with counterparts across several ministries and conduct trade and investment negotiations. Haiti is one of Taiwan's few diplomatic allies and has ties with the Caribbean countries since 1956.
This is a win-win relationship that will be beneficial to both our economies, thanks to the enormous market that will develop for Taiwanese business investments and ahead of the large projects necessary in Haiti.
I appreciate Haiti's long-term support of Taiwan's international participation. Haiti voiced for Taiwan both at the United Nations General Assembly last year and at the World Health Assembly this year.
And as we close the Latin American section, images of the Mexican artist Frida Kahlo is one click away thanks to the creation of a virtual museum dedicated to her work. The Faces of Frida shows the work of the Mexican painter and tells the story of her life. 800 items from 33 museums and private collections across the world are now available to view. Users can access the Google Interactive exhibition on its website or with the mobile app. Kahlo is the first artist from the 20th century with this kind of tribute. Time now for another short break, but join us again after another look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
شيف خليك ايدي وجهك مبين شيف هي Yes!
Welcome back. In a dramatic turn of events, the Russian journalist Arkady Babchenko, who was on Tuesday presumed murdered in the Ukrainian capital Kiev, has been found alive and has given a press conference. Ukraine security services said Babchenko's death was faked to foil a plot to take his life. The 41-year-old journalist is a critic of the Russian government and has been living in Kiev since 2017. He is a former war correspondent and he now works as a presenter for Ukraine's channel ATR TV.
As far as I know, this operation was prepared over 2 months ago. I was made aware of it 1 month ago. Over this month, I saw how the guys worked, how they dug things up like buffaloes. Over this month, we were in constant contact. We thought things through and worked out details. The result of that became the special operation, as a result of which one person has been detained.
Around 1,000 kilograms of endangered shark fins have been found hidden in an airline shipment in Hong Kong. The container had been labeled as dry seafood and was being shipped by Singapore Airlines. Now, although Hong Kong allows the imports of shark fins, which are considered a delicacy, it prohibits the trading of endangered sharks like giant and the placid whale shark without a permit. According to the World Wildlife Fund, nearly 70 million sharks are killed annually, pushing over a quarter of shark species into extinction.
They support this idea of not having shark fin anymore, but I still think there's some pressure from parents maybe, or from the company, or when there's business dinner, people have to entertain clients. I guess they still have to do it.
And an Egyptian lawyer has filed a lawsuit against Real Madrid captain Sergio Ramos, accusing him of deliberately injuring Liverpool and Egypt soccer player Mohamed Mo Salah during last Saturday's Champions League final. The attorney, Bassem Waba, is calling for compensation of $1.2 billion. Thousands of people have also signed a Change.org petition asking for Ramos to be punished for the incident. Salah needs a speedy recovery to be able to play in the upcoming World Cup tournament in Russia.
Happen from any player in any match, but what Ramos did, harassing Mohamed Salah twice from the start of the game, shows that he deliberately hurt and injured him. The whole world saw that, and this can be considered a crime. Unfortunately, the law does not impose sufficient penalties on this behavior, but it is the fault of the law, not our fault. We have the right to object what happened, and this is what we are trying to achieve by sending our voice to FIFA to impose a preventive punishment on Ramos. I hope that Mohamed Salah will be able to represent Egypt in the World Cup. I am afraid that the injury will affect him, especially as he is such a distinguished player for his team. I do not think Liverpool would risk him under any circumstances if he's not fully recovered. If that were to happen, all of Salah's fans in the world, including myself, will react strongly to FIFA and demand they take strong and decisive action against clubs and players who act in the same way as Ramos, especially given that Ramos' team is represented in the World Cup and Egypt may face his team if we qualify to go through the next level.
The oldest World Cup volunteer, Nikolai Stefan, who is 80 years old, proudly showed off his Olympic trophies in Moscow on Tuesday as he looked forward to the upcoming 2018 World Cup in Russia. The pensioner says he always wanted to take part in the World Cup, and he finally managed to fulfill his dream. Nikolai Stefan has already volunteered at major sporting events during the 2014 Olympic Games in Sochi. He showed off his pictures, documents, certificates, jackets, and medals from the events, including a certificate signed by the Russian President Vladimir Putin. And those stories have brought us to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telus4tv.net/English. You should also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Sonia Gray. Thank you so much for watching.